Welcome to Leveling Up with Gary and Jill. Today, we are here with the CEO and founder of Budget University, Shelby Patrice. Welcome, Shelby. Great to have you. So, tell us a little bit about your company. You are in the space of financial literacy,
hmm
and banks have tried to do this, insurance companies, nonprofits. What made you decide to get into this business, and what's your special take on it?
So, what made me start to get into financial literacy is that I was a flight attendant for American Airlines. And um, when I first became a flight attendant in 2016, my dad was like, you're going to move back home because the bases were insane, like LA, Chicago, and New York. And he's like, I'm going to have to help you. So, just come back home, save your money. So, I was always reading financial literacy books. And then I ended up getting furloughed as a flight attendant during COVID. And everybody was reaching out. Aren't you the girl in the jump seat that's always reading those financial literacy books? What book was it? So, opposed to repeating myself, I created a Facebook group. And that Facebook group was like 15 coworkers. Well, I woke up and it was 641 people, Jill, in that group. And I was like, okay, there's a need in this. And I remember investors and everyone saying that um, you have to find a need. So I was like, well, I'm gonna start a business. I don't have a job. I'm gonna start a business. So I ended up starting Budget University, and I was realizing that these were adults asking these questions. I mean, 20-year-olds, 60-year-olds, 70-year-old flight attendants. And I'm like, I'm gonna start Budget University.
I've been through your deck, and I guess I saw more. The world knows this is needed. Okay, so
hmm
it felt like you were throwing a lot of data out there about the market size and all that, where everyone already buys that. So what
hmm
I did not get enough of, and what I'd really like you to walk us through is, I don't know. I saw six, kind of headings, but I really don't know how this works. If I help me understand how I can engage with your company.
Yeah, I would love to. So, Budget University is basically your one-stop shop for financial literacy, and it goes two or three ways. So, I created a curriculum because I was like, this is needed. So I was like, Mom, you used to be a school teacher. Give me your lesson plans. So my mom was like, well, here. And I'm like, Mom, you're teaching Shakespeare, and he's talking about his inheritance. I'm like, inheritance, royalties, generational wealth. That's financial literacy. So I went ahead and I created a curriculum for history, science, English, and math that integrates financial literacy. So then I was like, but wait, this also has to cater to those that don't need the education platform and they just want to go over seven pillars, which is 401k, basic banking, investing, student loans, credit, life insurance. So our two ways is where students can sign up as a full-time student because we are accredited and they can take those courses, or people that are like, you know what, I just need more knowledge on 401k. You know what, I just need knowledge on how to buy a house. So within those pillars as well, we have interviews with realtors, brokers, 401k advisors, people, just bankers, how to properly open up your bank to give people that knowledge that they need to know.
And so is it like a table of contents? Is that how you, because I love the idea. What you're saying is very appealing. I'm
Mhm,
trying to figure out, I've joined, we need to get into, is this a subscription model? If
mhm.
so, how much? I mean, I want to
Yeah.
understand all of that.
So we are subscription model based, and you can come within a subscription if you want to do the community based version for the seven pillars, or students sign up for a 1 year license plan for their schooling, and it's self paced, and they can finish the curriculum in 3 months, 4 months, 9 months, but they do have a 10-month stretch to finish their curriculum. The other subscription models where people can just sign up for a subscription, get the content that they need, and they're able to delete the subscription whenever they need fit. We do have it in there where there are personal modules and retroactive calculators where people can go in there and they can put in their information. Once they put in their information, they're able to hold themselves accountable for what they need to do, whether it's saving money, I'm trying to buy a house. And we have those retroactive calculators in there along with interviews to walk people through what they need with each pillar.
So, when you talk about the curriculum and it being accredited, What does someone receive at the end of this program?
Yeah,
Do
so
they
mhm. So sixth grade. So if the sixth grader comes and they finish, they will get on their transcript that they finished their sixth grade courses of history, science, English, math. From there, they'll be able to go to the next level, which is seventh grade. When we do in-person workshops with a lot of teachers in school districts here in the ISD in Dallas, like ISD and Crowley ISD, students will be able to take our in-person workshop and it goes towards a grade for the class, whether it's economics, math, college, and career readiness. So with us being accredited, students are able to put it on their transcripts that, hey, I took a financial literacy course and it's accredited. So it goes towards their grade for graduation.
are these kids who are registered in-person school, or are these homeschoolers? How does this
Yes.
work?
So we do have two segments. We do have we license out our program, we license out our LMS, and that would go to the school districts. But we also have students that are homeschooled and they sign up for the program as well, and they're able to take the class.
For
So,
credit, for
Yes.
yes.
homeschool credit. Okay.
Yes, for homeschool credit. Yep.
And it can be a straight ahead history class.
Yeah, straight ahead history class. So it's so fun because with history, we're still going to integrate like slavery and land and stuff like that. But that's when we also bring in real estate. Why is it important to keep this land? What is the equity on this land? And that's the history of it. So give me the history of the land. Give me the history of how much this land costs. And even in our science program, teach students are going to learn about energy and their energy bills, and so they have to bring in a parent's energy bill and they're able to read the grid. That right there is preparing them for the STAR test. The STAR test has line graph charts and bar graph charts. So now we're seeing it in a financial literacy perspective.
That is really fascinating.
It,
So,
it,
this sounds like the kind of thing you don't do by yourself.
You don't do by
So,
yourself.
tell me about your team.
Yes. So my team, so it's so funny because my team came from when I was previously Miss Texas in 2016. And then I was like, you know what? I worked with Warner Brothers with the movie Storks and how it coincided with adoption because I'm adopted. And then I had them say, hey, Shelby, we followed you on Facebook and we saw your website. So they were like, you know what? I can do your website. I was like, well, hold on now because, I don't have a job. I'm on a budget. So they were able to, one of the IT guys was able to help me build my website out and build my learning management system. And I was able to go on a payment plan. From there, I utilized LinkedIn, I utilized Fiverr. And on LinkedIn, I was able to get in contact with Amy, who's a retired curriculum specialist in a school district. And she came on and she holds me accountable to say, okay, this is aligned with what the schools are doing. This is what you have to do with Budget University. And then I also have Gloria, and Gloria does the grant research for me. These are the grants that are out there for education and helps me with those grant proposals.
so, so this is Shelby. This is very interesting, and I have to tell you, your deck that you sent us wasn't as exciting as you are, and as what you're describing. And I would really invite you to throw away your existing deck. Okay,
Okay.
forget you ever did it.
Okay.
And from a marketing sense, you you could do yourself an enormous service if you could figure out the right way to show graphically the array of types of people, how they would use the different parts of your app or your curriculum or all the services that you offer. And if you're trying to attract an investor, I can promise you they have already bought into the power of ed tech, the disparities in the different sections of the population. You're pushing on an open door with 90% of your deck. What they want to invest in is your product, and what you're describing is exciting as it can be. And
You've
I just
got
I just want
more than
more.
one product too. So many people, when they're just starting a company, they come up with something that is more like one product and not a company. You've actually come up with a company because you can already see the different, lines of business, the whole university thing. I thought that was just kind of a cute name, and I do like your logo, but
Thank
it's bigger than that
you.
because it is actually an education provider
Hmm.
outside of just financial literacy, but doing this interesting cross-disciplinary
Yeah,
approach to
yeah.
really get kids to want to hone in. If you ever go to career day, any of us who've been to career day, what is the first thing they ask you? How much do you make? Like,
Yeah.
it is, you're up here trying to talk about the joys of, being a lawyer, being a flight attendant. They're like, all right, all that is fine. How much money do you
Right,
make? Like, that's what
right.
they want to know.
Hmm.
And this really hones in on how they want to think about where do I go in life. So I think that's
Hmm.
fascinating. I also need to double back because you just sort of dropped in the crumbs here when you were Miss Texas. So can you tell us a little bit about that, and how has that kind of influenced your experience in this business?
Yeah, so it actually goes back. When I went to Kentucky State University, I did my first pageant, which was the Miss Black Kentucky USA pageant. Didn't think anything of it. I just wanted to try new things. And my pageant director was like, Shelby, what's going to be your platform? And I was like, oh, I think I'll just be an advocate for breast cancer awareness. She was like, no, something that you can relate to, from your heart that you can speak from. I was like, well, I was adopted. She was like, well, do that. So being adopted stuck with me, and being able to go into the family that I have now, and just being raised in the suburbs of Miami, being able to travel and do all those things. And then when my grandmother passed away is when I was told, hey, I've never seen a family so organized. And I just felt like that hit me, and being able to be blessed and adopted into the family that I have, I wanted everybody to have this opportunity of like financial literacy. And so and after that, I ended up getting furloughed from Americans. So I'm like, you know what? I want a platform where everybody could go to, and they can go ahead and they can just have that one-stop shop. So for me, being adopted and using my voice and being fortunate to be in a nice family, I was like, this is what I want to do.
You've got such a great story, and I agree with Jill in it that it may be what you almost want to lead with the your differentiator, because investors or people that are looking at it are, well, so what's so different about you? This interdisciplinary approach with the accent of what you're doing without saying you're doing it is showing them how understanding of finance affects not just your knowledge of what's going on in the world, but how you get along in the world. And
Hmm.
that's, I don't know that I have ever heard in such a succinct little quick snippet someone describe a lesson plan that included interdisciplinary aspects of one subject like
Oh,
that. And I
yeah.
just, yeah,
Yeah.
And
that's
you would
big.
hear kids, their parents would tell them, all right, cut off those lights.
Hmm. Yes.
We're,
Yes.
or no, you can't have everything at the, cash register where they have the little eye level candies, or what have you. And to really be able to take some of that and utilize that in their understandings of the world, because you have people who come out with degrees, educations, but not educated, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that pulling them in, I really think, is kind of the killer app to getting their attention. So many things that people think they would be good at, they they or think they would not be good at, rather. They would be better at it if they understood its relevance. And so you've brought so much
Yes.
interesting relevance to the financial
Hmm.
literacy play, and true
Yeah.
education, true connection. And then tell me a little bit about the delivery of the product. Like, so this
Yes.
is this is
Yes.
happening.
Yeah, so this is happening virtually, and it's also happening in person, but it's so fun because what our students also do virtually and in the in-person workshops is, depending on the grade that we're doing, and depending on the demographic, we allow them to do an icebreaker. And sometimes the icebreaker can go over because it's a music session. So we would play Taylor Swift, or we would play Future, or we will play some type of hip hop song, and they have to talk about money. We will pause it. The students would tell me, did he just talk about an asset, or did he just talk about a liability? And students are like, oh, well, he just said he was going to go buy the block. And I was like, so what does that mean? That's real estate. So that's an asset. So now they're seeing that what they're listening to has to do with it could be financial literacy. And then it's, they have lyrics that are just talking about, oh, I blew all my money on this. And I'm like, okay, so what did he do? Well, he didn't save his money, Miss Jenkins. So that's not a good look. So the students are understanding what they're listening to. And
Yeah.
also, like you said, with the parents and the light bills, I have parents tell me, like, he turns off all the lights in the house now. He understands. And
Yes.
I'm just like, and they get it and they see. And one of my students said, I kind of feel bad because, my mom's working like two jobs and I'm over here asking her for a new pair of shoes. And when she said I don't have it, I thought she was lying, but no, she really does not have it, because they're understanding the cost structure. They do breakouts of our college and career readiness calculators, where we have calculators that calculates their top three schools and tells them in-state tuition, out-state tuition, what's the average ACT score to get into that school, the average SAT score to get into that school, what's the graduation rate, so they can see if they have a chance, and what are the repayments of the student loans when they leave those schools. So when they're looking at that, they're like, wow, this is expensive. This is going to cost. This is how much the salary is going to cost, is going to be when I graduate and I do this major. So they're actually able to see a breakdown of their college and career readiness assessment.
Well, I think this is screaming for case studies, kind of leading with case studies, because if I heard you right, you could have a 60-year-old person explaining why this is the best thing that ever happened to them. They're fired up again. They're trying to learn. They want to grow. Life looks bigger than it did before they experienced this. Where for someone who's 16, 17, 18, it's a light bulb going on in their head saying, wait a second, I need to stick with this.
Yes.
It's like on and on and on, and to create an array of case studies that covers the gamut of your customer groups. It seems to me that will attract a lot of interest to what you're doing, and
Yes.
Oh,
it's a complete reorientation, I think, of how you're promoting yourself.
yeah. And what your adjacencies and partners can be.
Hmm.
Because there have been studies also, just if we think about the entrepreneurial space, there have been studies that if you include literacy along with investing, that you're more likely to get the payback because people are working and understanding better. So I can see banks thinking that is very interesting.
Hmm.
You've already talked about the school systems. Tell us a little bit about what's the sell through or sell cycle with school systems, because those tend to be kind of behemoths. So where have you been able to make those inroads to actually prove the premise of this curriculum?
So it was so funny because at first I was doing the RFPs, I was applying, I was getting in, I was doing all that. And they were like, okay, approved. But they weren't allowing me to come into the schools. And I was like, okay, I'm approved as a vendor. I got the RFP, but when are they going to start the program? And I kept hearing, hey, we're going through budget cuts, we're going through budget cuts. So I was like, you know what? As an entrepreneur, and we're known as hustlers, I was like, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go through their partners. So I would contact their partners, and one of them was the Dallas Mavericks. And I was like, hey, you guys do Dallas ISD. It's financial literacy month. How can I go through you guys to teach my program? Oh, well, let's pitch it. So we pitched it, and that's how I started to get in. So I had to navigate a way to go around the budget cuts so I can actually get in there. And now it's a welcome back cycle so they can actually see the product. So I really had to believe in myself and know my product and know that it was needed for them to say, you know what, it is worth the budget cut. It is worth putting her in the budget for that.
And I would be surprised if an Intuit, for instance, you couldn't partner with them to give free copies of their software, free support for their use of it as they start getting comfortable enough to be able to say, gee, maybe I ought to automate my finances.
Yeah.
Maybe I ought to have regular auto pays for some of my things that are regular monthly. And you start your your you're opening up their view of the world, and I think that there are places and companies you could partner with who could give you things that are valuable for your users that can make the whole thing worthwhile. I mean, people will line. I happen to think for what you're talking about, Shelby. I think corporates in the financial world will line up behind what you're doing to try to figure out what they can do to be helpful,
Hmm.
and then get to know
Oh,
people who are in
absolutely.
your student groups. Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what do you think your end game is?
So my end game is I have a whole list of things, but like you said, I've been presenting to the NCAA because I also feel like with this with high school students getting their NIL deals, it's super important that they're able to do Budget University. I also am working with other friends to start another segment in Budget University for athletes, how to properly read a contract, how to properly search for the perfect team, or like just reading the contract and know where your money is going, and what's in the contract. I also have ways of doing another HR program where people are like, you know what, I'm just now getting into the work field as a graduate. How to properly pick your healthcare provider.
Oh,
What does
yeah.
PPO mean? How can I properly use my HSA account? What stores
Yeah.
use it? How to properly say, you know what, I may be a new fresh college grad, but this salary is not going to work for me. How do you professionally ask for an increase or a raise in salary? So that's also what I want to integrate there, and that just expands our bandwidth and just takes us up to like the next level to bring more people and have more customers, and to also use our retroactive calculators that are provided with the software.
Man, you could light up a city, Shelby. It's a this this is this is really, really interesting. Help me. How do you organize to be as effective as you can be? I mean, how do you plan to sell? For instance, are you going to organize the market have you already thought about how you're going to organize the markets, and how you're going to find the sales leader, and how you're going to be able to afford to pay for them? Because you're going to have to eat your dog food during this entire process, because you're bootstrapping this thing.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think, what are your key sales organizations you have to penetrate, and how are you going to find someone who can do that for you? Because you're about to have more than you can say grace over when word gets out of what you're doing here in the effective new way. You're going to
Yeah.
need a good team.
Yes. So I did start thinking about that, and I did put that in my business plan. But when I do, I know that it's going to expand. But first things first is I have to focus on the states. There are 27 states right now that require financial literacy to graduate. So my focus right now are those 27 states. Now, out of the 50 states in the US, once it starts expanding, we will divide it by regions: East Coast, West Coast, Midwest, down South. Who's going to do these regions when it comes down to a sales team? I wanted to do a strategy, and you can help me on this with commission base. Whatever the sales team comes up and how many license they can give out to either a school district or homeschool students, it would be on a commission base with like a regular base salary, and then they would add on to commission for it. Coming from American Airlines, I was realizing I always feel like your 9 to 5 can be your cheat code, and I see on our newsletters like, okay, they do profit sharings, they do that. So I'm like, how am I also going to give my team an incentive? Because I do want to make Budget University a competitive workplace when it comes to ed tech software and selling it.
There are lots of ways to go with that too, because I'm also thinking about your outstripping capacity,
Hmm.
and you might be able to turn whole segments over to people. So rather than saying, I'm going to run all of this all over the country, is this something franchisable?
Hmm.
where people are able to take on certain components to it? Can
Hmm.
you expand by virtue, and there are pros and cons to the franchise world, but can you expand in certain ways because you are enabling people to go and launch this? Can you license certain aspects of it that are
Hmm.
outside the curriculum development? Because it sounds like you have figured out that if you go with the market that is hungry for the and needing this financial literacy, then that should be kind of the easiest way through. And then you build up capital and then decide, all right, now what's my next trick?
Hmm.
And is that you piece that off? Is this something that various financial professionals all over the country license from you, different aspects and modules? Do you white label it and it's budget
Hmm.
university? But if I'm at Northwestern Mutual, do I want to utilize that? Or if I'm at, Fidelity, do I want
Hmm.
to white label
Hmm.
something? If I'm, an independent person, in various arenas. So you've got a lot of, I think, capacity based issues, which are great problems to have
Okay.
because you have so much added aspects of this business. There are just so many different ways this can go, and that is attractive to investors as well.
Okay. That's good to
Wh-
know.
Are you in any are you in any entrepreneurial groups? Do you have any mentors that you're developed relationships with? Tell me what you're doing to get support for yourself as you are wandering down this new road.
Yes, so I'm actually in three support groups. One of them is the Goldman Sachs Women 500, where it's women entrepreneurs through Goldman Sachs, and we have a program where we go and we have mentors in there, and we can ask questions to, and set up one-on-ones. And those are executives, and for me, that helps because they are in the financial stream. Another one is here in Dallas, which is D Magazine. I was in their cohort as well, and I stayed there, so they really help me when it comes down to like marketing or networking, or hey, you have this person, do you know if I can set up a meeting through them? So they've really helped with that segment. And then I also did a program with Texas Security Bank that I'm in as well, and the vice president of the bank, she helps me with the product, what to do, what I need to keep in, what I need to take out. So she really helps me stream that. I do try to stay in the financial aspect of things, but I really don't have the support from ed tech companies or an ed tech mentor themselves.
And how much of the company is technology versus the content that you have chosen to put through a technology platform?
I would say about 80% of it, because everything can be found online, and like once you log in, and I just integrate like the curriculum and everything through the platform. So everything's like online.
Well, and I may not have asked the question clear enough because I'm curious if you are more content than tech. And that's not a negative at all. It's actually what makes you special and differentiated, that you've got this content that you're able to continue to develop and sort of the theory of it. But then the next piece is, are there ways that this is somehow either differentiated, improved, streamlined, because now you're able to put it through some sort of technology platform that is not just facilitating the delivery, but adding something to what happens with the product?
Yeah. That's a good question. I would say that for me, I try to make my product just all tech and not so much content based. Because I feel like with where what I see the world is, everything is technology. So I just want everything just to be in the tech system for Budget University.
I am so impressed with you. I mean, I really am. And
Thank you.
I I would love to know, and this is something that, because I guess you've got a lot of beta tests going on, or
Hmm.
A/B testing or things like that. I would be very interested, and you need to have it top of your mind. What is getting the biggest, what parts of a very diverse array of curriculum, if you think about it, what's getting the most uptake?
That's a
Go
good
ahead.
Definitely the
question.
student loans. The student loan calculator that we have is getting the most uptake because a lot of our students want to go to college and they're able to see the pricing of it. And they're like, okay, that subject right there is really what's driving and what's getting the most attention, especially in the workshops that we do and online.
So for the colleges that have said if you make under X amount, your family makes under X amount, you have free tuition,
Mhm.
what what's your answer to that?
My
How does that
answer
get integrated or not?
It's definitely something to talk about, but it's also definitely something that I always tell. We just had this discussion to actually look at all the fine print and the blueprint of it. And yes, it's the income base, but you also have to see is will you get striked if do you have to keep a certain GPA? Because that's really with a lot of stimulations. Also, do you have to turn in your will you have to turn in your pay stubs or W-2s all the time? Are they going to audit you every 6 months to say, hey, this parent got this? Are they just going off of salary or are they also going off of like incentives of child support and other things as well to look at, like alimony?
Other assets, yeah. It's like,
Hmm.
well, you've got this house, like, is it net worth or anything like
Exactly.
that? Yeah. So very interesting. Are you able to perform well enough to get in to some of these universities? And then really looking at the curriculum and how you're really developing a lot of critical thinking skills by pulling a lot of different works in that aren't immediately suggesting themselves as financial literacy and causing people to see it in different places. That's really developing critical thinking, which is so needed right now. Where everybody thinks if you just put a question in Google and you get back an answer, like directly. But
Hmm.
no, you need some critical thinking, some ability to understand what you're seeing, and you are getting that. You've cracked the code on that so beautifully.
Thank you. Yeah. I think that it's also important for students that when you are going to these universities, you have a plan. Like when we do work with our students, what exactly, what major do you want to study? Are there resources? What's the graduation rate in that department? Are people staying 4 years terms or 5 years terms? And that can also be the in the deal too when they're like, hey, we're providing this, but do you have 4 years to complete? Because the average student now going to college is honestly graduating in 5 6 years. A 4 year college plan is really not it's not hitting like it used to. So that's also something to look into, which means that your student loans are going to be more. And that's what we try to tell our students as well, because with the student loans and you graduate, it looks like you took out 8 credit cards when really you just went for 4 years and but it's per semester. So you have to also learn
Right.
how to consolidate that.
No, that's great. I hope you're having fun.
I am. I think that's the best part is having fun and then really just witnessing people tell me like, we went through Budget University and you were right, we got approved for the house, but we're gonna do the process again because we need to do it through one salary. And I feel like that's what helps the most is to see people's outcomes and just also just to see the students change and have another drastic view on life.
Yeah. Do you still have that Facebook group?
Yes, I still have the Facebook group. I think it's like 4,000 people in there, but I haven't been active in it lately because I've just been on the Budget University and with the blogs, but it's there.
You need to be able to mint yourself here. I really do think you're you the value of a couple of other people that have your energy level, your intellect, uh, your passion for what you're doing. If you could figure out how to put together a small but powerful group of, and call them co-founders, that you can truly talk and agree with what they're going to do, and then they go out and do it, and then frees up your time
Okay.
to focus on things. You got to keep moving to a higher and higher level of you sitting on top of this company. You should only be working on things that should be on your desk, versus everything that comes through is on your desk. And you're to realize the dreams you've been sharing with us, I think today, you're going to need some help.
Hmm.
I and people have to have passion to want to be on your team and understand, hey, there's not a lot of money here to be paying people,
Hmm.
but here's what we need to deliver in order to translate that into compensation and make all this worth it for not just all the people that use our app, but for us also. And you just have to you've clearly got the communication skill set to pull that off. You just need to figure out where to round up people and paying close attention to their skill sets against what your
That
skill set is.
Hmm.
uh,
it can
Man,
be kind of a Venn diagram. You overlap with passion and connectedness, but they're filling in some other things because that's what's going to be so much more accretive to what you're trying to do.
Okay. Yeah. I think and that's the thing is transitioning from founder to CEO. Because I feel like when you're a founder, you're definitely more hands-on, but it's that transitioning to a CEO and running it and having other people in there. I think that's one of the biggest things that I don't know exactly how to navigate just yet.
you may not, but it is very logical. I mean, when Jill said, put together people that have the different skill sets, well, you maybe never thought about it, but if you had thought about it, there's 100% chance you would have said, I don't need people walking around here with the same skills I have.
Right.
And if you reflect on what your capabilities are, you'll be able to quickly come down and say, here are 3 or 4 areas where I probably shouldn't have my hand on the wheel because I'm just not, by background experience, proclivity, or just desire, I'm not going to be good at that.
Hmm.
And you need to be real sober going through that exercise and then assemble the team that can fill those blanks in for you, because you need to figure out how to get this thing up and running on a bigger level. You've got something the world needs, and the world doesn't even know that it needs it.
Hmm.
So you got some wood to chop.
Yeah, I do.
Indeed. What size is your board, or do you have a board? I notice you have like sort of this team, but do you have a board?
Yes, I actually so Budget University is a for-profit, and I actually just opened up the nonprofit, got approved for the nonprofit side last week. Our board is 5 of us total. And for that, the reason why I did that is because I felt as if the nonprofit can pay the for-profit for the ed tech software. And so now with my board, I have Christina, who is the vice president of Encore Bank. I have Dewan, who's a teacher. I have Quinn, who is an executive assistant at a financial firm, and then I have myself, and then I have Grace, who does the grant stuff. So for me, that's important because they all have skill sets that I'm just not good at. And I realize that they have their strengths in certain areas that I'm just not really pristine in.
So, Shelby, this is usually the part of our podcast where we kind of go around the table and you'd start with what you learned or didn't learn or looking to learn, and then we'll go through what we believe we've heard and listened to today with what our thoughts are, for because all this is for our listeners who are all on the same sort of journey that you're on, and
Mhm.
they're all hoping that by listening in to these podcasts they can learn something that can differentiate what they're doing from their competitors. Well, one thing's for sure, your passion. Your passion is that's going to be, everybody who listens here is going to feel that. So,
Yeah.
but what else?
I have to do a new pitch deck. I have to throw out the one that I have and do a new one. I need to start transitioning from founder to CEO and find others with different skill sets. And I have to also build my bandwidth so I can see exactly who else I can serve Budget University to for another target audience.
My
Jill?
takeaway is with the high quality of idea and execution that you have an opportunity to have a board that can do even more for you.
Okay.
And so that's something that I think should be definitely explored. I
Okay.
love that you're in love with execution, because a
Hmm.
lot of founders get in love with just the story and maybe going out and raising money. You're actually in love with what this company really is. And
Hmm.
I think that gives it an excellent chance.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
This has been Leveling Up with Gary and Jill. Thank you.
That's it for today's episode of Leveling Up with Gary and Jill. Thanks for joining us. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this podcast. For more inspiring stories and breakthrough moments, visit GaryandJillPodcast.com. See you next episode.